Hello, I'm the Greek Geek because I'm 50% Greek and 100% a geek. Now, out of all of the original trilogy movies, this one is easily the weakest in my opinion. Watching this again recently, there are so many more flaws that I noticed. It doesn't flow as well as previous movies, and the Empire gets overthrown by little teddy bears with Stone Age technology called Ewoks. So, let's get into my review of Return of the Jedi.
I seek an audience with your greatness to bargain for Solo's life. With your wisdom, I'm sure that we can work out an arrangement which will be mutually beneficial and enable us to avoid any unpleasant confrontation.
The movie starting off, I already have a big problem with it. The Empire thinks it's a good idea to make a second Death Star. So I don't know why they think it's a good idea to make another Death Star after the first one fails. It just screams stupidity to me, and that George Lucas was maybe running out of ideas, even though this is only the third film out of the entire franchise. And the first third of the movie focuses on rescuing Han from the clutches of Jabba the Hutt. And that takes up over 30 minutes of the movie, and it really bogs the movie down, and there's so many other things that are put in the movie that don't really need to be there and don't help the movie go along at all. And when they're trying to rescue Luke from Jabba, that so much has to rely on Luke's plan going correctly. For some reason, he sends the droids in first, and then where he tries to negotiate via hologram. Then Leia and Chewbacca go in under disguise as a bounty hunter, and they get captured, and then finally Luke decides to go in. And then R2-D2 had to be in the same room as him to take out Jabba the Hutt to get his lightsaber. And then eventually the rebels are working out how to take out this new Death Star, and it just feels like a retread of the first movie, with Ewoks.
I think my eyes are getting better. Instead of a big dark blur, I see a big light blur.
There's nothing to see. I used to live here, you know.
You're gonna die here, you know. Convenient.
In this movie, I like how Luke is portrayed as a Jedi, how he'll use violence as a last resort. He tries to negotiate with Jabba several times before Leia actually kills him. He tries to negotiate with Darth Vader to try and convince him to come back to the light side, even though Darth Vader is one of the most evil villains in all of the Star Wars franchise and is almost beyond redemption. But Luke tried to redeem him anyway. Not like he tried to do something stupid and try and kill him in his sleep. I'm not going to talk too much else about the rest of the cast. Everyone does an okay-ish kind of job, but I'll get more into the acting a bit later. There is a revelation that Luke and Leia are brother and sister, and that's a bit orkies, but it's nowhere near as big as a revelation as it was in the last movie with Luke being Darth Vader's son. And Jabba the Hutt is finally shown in this movie. If you haven't seen the special edition in New Hope, you don't see Jabba before this movie, and it's just a gigantic slug. The puppetry is quite good on him though, and he really does give the good vibe that he is just this slimy, literally gangster. Ian McDiarmid is Emperor Palpatine, and we finally see him in his full glory in this movie. And I love that they casted Ian McDiarmid when he was younger in this movie so he could portray Chancellor Palpatine / Emperor Palpatine in future movies. So that was a good call. We do get more of Boba Fett in this movie than the last movie. He has a lot more to do, but he is played up to be a bit of an ineffective chump because he tries to do stuff, but everything he tries to do against Luke and everyone else is ineffective, and he gets taken out by Han by accident and falls into the Sarlacc pit. What a way to go.
I feel the conflict within you. Let go of your hate.
It is too late for me, son. The Emperor will show you the true nature of the Force.
I think this movie of the original trilogy is the weakest when it comes to acting. You can kind of tell that Harrison Ford has stopped giving a shit, and I don't think Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher are giving their A game in this movie, but Harrison Ford especially, you can tell he's just stopped giving a shit. He didn't want to be in any more Star Wars movies after Empire Strikes Back, and that shows in this movie. And there's also some pretty bad deliveries of some lines. One comes to mind of James Earl Jones voicing Darth Vader.
He will come to me.
just the line delivery on that just seemed very off to me. But there are also some very iconic lines in this movie that are basically memes now.
It's a trap!
If you will not be turned, you will be destroyed.
I like how Luke is shown to be a different kind of Jedi in this movie compared to what we see them like in the prequels when they're at their peak or whatever. I like how he'll use what are considered dark side powers when he force chokes the Gamorrean guards, but I think this has been retconned that he just mind tricked them into thinking they were being choked instead of actually choking them. But, I don't know, in my opinion, he used force choke to choke them, but not kill them. Which makes me think of the Force as being, you can use the Force however you want, you just use it for good or for bad, it's up to you. I like how he's not biased against using blaster weapons. We saw when he tried to take out Jabba the Hutt, he tried to grab a blaster using the Force and using it to take out Jabba the Hutt. Now, like in this one, we see the Emperor and how he's kind of deformed and looks very evil, and through that we learn that the dark side does take a toll on a person. It makes them look more of a monster and more degenerate. And with the Emperor, we see a new Force power, Force Lightning, which is a very iconic dark side power, and it is a staple in future movies, TV shows, games, books, and comic books. So, Force Lightning, 2 thumbs up. I like Luke's use of his Force powers in this movie. Like at the start of the movie, I feel he uses a good amount of his Force powers to show how powerful and how far he has progressed. Like he'll use Force pull to bring things to him, like the blaster and his lightsaber. And he'll use Force choke on the Gamorrean guards. He tries to use the Jedi mind trick. He uses the Force to jump around, deflect blaster bolts, and that kind of thing. We see what he's become. But then later on in the movie, he hardly uses any Force powers at all. Like when he's chasing that scout trooper through Endor on the speeder bike, and he could be using Force powers to pull him off his bike or stuff like that, doesn't use it at all. And I still have a massive problem with how little teddy bears with Stone Age technology are able to take out Imperial stormtroopers and vehicles that have very advanced technology and explosives and blaster weapons. That part of the movie is very dumb to me and completely unrealistic. Not that anything else in this movie is realistic anyway, or in this franchise, as a matter of fact. And I like the lightsaber duel in this movie as well. It's not as good as the previous one, in my opinion, but you do get a good sense of the emotion that Luke's going through as well. The score that's playing when he loses his shit and starts to beat on Darth Vader shows that he's losing control and is almost being tempted by the dark side, but not quite. And building on from the lightsaber duel, the grand finale of the entire movie, so there's a lot going on. You've got the space battle with the Rebels and the Empire trying to break through to get to the Star Destroyer. You've got the ground battle happening on Endor, and you've got the lightsaber duel going on as well. And they do this again in The Phantom Menace. So there's 3 stories going on at the same time, and it's not hard to keep track of, but there is a lot going on. Compared to the last 2 movies, I think they used even more matte paintings than they did in previous movies. And they are impressive, don't get me wrong. They look great and are almost seamless into the movies nowadays. But there was a couple of times where I noticed that there was a matte painting against a green screen, and it conflicted with the characters in the foreground as well. And not a terrible thing, this movie is quite old by now, but I don't think the matte paintings and the green screen, the special effects, were as seamless as the previous movie. And again, I am watching the special edition because that's the ones I have on DVD, so of course there is some needless shit added. So there's tentacles with the Sarlacc pit, among other things, and we've got that whole dance music scene with Max Rebo and his band, and hilariously out of place in this movie. It has no business being in this movie. It has nothing to do with the plot of the movie or anything. It's just a music scene in a Star Wars movie. Rather than that, the special effects look okay. The ships, the vehicles, laser blasters, all that looks pretty good.
I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody gets delusions of grandeur. All right, pal. I'm all right.
As I said earlier, the first 30 minutes, over 30 minutes, actually closer to 40, is dedicated to rescuing Han Solo. It's not a quick thing that happens. It's a big chunk of the movie is dedicated to this. And it didn't really need to be there. Like, Han Solo is in the movie, sure, but it didn't seem like he needed to be in this movie. He doesn't really do anything that is instrumental to the plot of the movie where he needs to be there. Like, he does open the door of that bunker, or he helps do it at least anyway. But other than that, he doesn't need to be in this movie. It's almost like they wrote the script about him being in the movie or not. It didn't really matter. So they could have cut that down to just quickly getting him in and getting him out of Jabba's palace. And also the time spent with the Ewoks as well just drags down the movie too. Like, there's this big threat of the Empire getting their Death Star 2 online and ready to use, and the rebellion getting destroyed, and they're chilling out with Ewoks once they find them. They spend the night with them and all this, and it's just bogs the movie down and is unnecessary. I realize they wanted to get them on their side to help them fight against the Empire, but they dedicate that amount to a good chunk of the movie too, and it also seems unnecessary. Bloody Ewoks. Would I recommend this movie? Yes, of course. It's a Star Wars movie. I do, even though I think I was complaining more than anything about this movie, it is not really that bad, and it's an okay end to the original trilogy of movies. Most likely you would have seen it by now, but other than the story feeling out of place in some places, things happen that don't really need to happen, and the acting can be a bit iffy sometimes, this is still an okay movie. So, that was my review of Star Wars: The Return of the Jedi. As always, thank you for listening to me ramble on about a movie for a few minutes. I really do appreciate it. Thank you again, and I'll catch you next time.